Okay, class. So today what I wanted to do is take a few minutes, show you a couple of new things. First off, now I have a server up and running. You see, this is my server. And one of the things that I want to do is I want to make sure that I pin a command down here on the bottom. So I'm going to click CMD. When command prompt comes up, right click and say run as administrator. And once that's running, make sure you pin that down here because it's just going to save you a lot of time. You're going to want to do that for all of your workstations as well. I think I did that here. Let me see. No, it would say as administrator, so I'm going to unpin that. And I'm going to type in CMD, right click, run as administrator, and then I'm going to pin that down there, just like that. Okay. That's one of the things I wanted to do. The next thing I want to let you know is I have now tied workstation 1, workstation 2, and server 1 all into the same switch. This is workstation 1 at net 192.168.54.1 with /24. I'll move that down a little bit. So you can see the default gateway and the DNS server. I have two cards in here. One of them I disabled so I didn't get confused. This particular device, if I got it going right, it should be plugged into the LAN segment lab switch 1, which I did the other day, and then I just disconnected the other one. If it really confuses you, two of those in there, best thing to do, remove it. You can always add it back in later. All right. Now I only have one NIC in each one of these, I do believe, and those should be plugged into the LAN segment 1 as well. Now at this point in time, I kind of have everything all nice and set up how I want it to be. So what I'm going to do is, so I don't ruin anything, I'm going to take a snapshot of each one of these. I'm going to say before domain connection. All right. And then I'm going to put in here my IP address and everything like that. Well, I'm just going to say like basic setup to do labs. All right. And then as I do different things throughout here, I can do the same thing. So basic setup before. See, I think I said before domain hookup. This has some shares and static IP address. And then I'm going to do the same thing down here. I'm going to say snapshot, take a snapshot before DNS setup. Okay, so basic static IP address, nothing installed. Now, to set up a server, a DNS server with a DHCP server and everything like that, you have to have a static IP address. So I got my 192.168.54.1 server up and running there. And what we can do here is, I'm going to kind of do this on the fly. It's been a little while since I've done it, but I should be okay. So I want to add a role. And it's going to say, before you begin, you got to do this and this and this and this. The first time you go through this, you got to read everything. You truly do. That's how you're going to understand things. That's how you're going to learn things. I will say that right now, I just noticed that this is the name of my server, and I want to change the name of my server before I do anything. So I need to come in and fumble around and remember how to change my server. My server's name, and I want to come down here. I want to change this to server 1. It's going to prompt me for a reboot. That's perfectly fine. So that's the other thing I want to do. I want to make sure all of these are named appropriately. Okay, now that I'm back up, we're going to see that my stuff is going to pop up here. There it is. And now I want to come back to add role, whoops. Back up to add roles and features. Go to make sure we read that, and eventually you can say skip that. Role-based feature installation. You can also, come down here and click on this eventually if you want and see what all that's about. And then eventually you want to take your time to look through all of this. Notice how it says select a server for the server root. Well, that's going to be my server 1. That's going to be my root. Or I could select a hard disk, a virtual hard disk with virtualization. Here are all the different server roles that we have capable here. All right, so we want to set up an Active Domain Directory service, or Active Directory Domain Services. And notice it's going to tell you for each one of these what they do. All right, so like here's a DHCP server and a DNS and a fax. And one of the things we want to do is we actually do want Active Directory. Okay, and I'll say add features. I want a DHCP, and I also want a DNS. All right, so the next thing I want to do is I want to click on next. It's going to kind of take me through any additional features that I might need. For example, here's IIS, that's the web server stuff, anything else that we might need that we have to have installed. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and click on next. And now it's you're gonna read through this. You're gonna read through it. I'm just gonna kind of skip through it because I've read it many times over the different servers since as far back as Windows NT. That was the original Windows NT 3.51. Then it went to Windows Server 2000, and they just kind of kept on going from there. And now we have Windows Server 2019. This is the latest. It's going to talk about dynamic host configuration, what you should think about doing for that. You should configure at least one static IP address on this computer. We did that. Check. All right. And then it's going to talk about the DNS and how it's going to integrate with Active Directory Domain Services. Next. And we can say restart automatically if required. All right. And then we're going to click on install. It's going to start going through everything. Just because it's installed doesn't necessarily mean that it's configured. I don't know what configuration. I can't remember what configuration is necessary. One of the things we're going to do over here on at least one of these workstations is we are going to change that fixed IP address. So I'm going to come over and I'm going to come in here and I want to say obtain everything automatically. All right. All right, so now once I get everything set up and running over here on server, this should automatically get an IP address. While I'm over here, I will say that I've already enabled it so I can ping my server. Remember I said that's one of the things we always want to make sure that we can do. I'm getting oh, that's because I just deleted it. I'm getting a general transmission failure, so let's try it over here on workstation 2. Yep, I can get that. And while this server is installing, it's still installing, I want to ping that workstation over there. Can't remember what it was. Yeah, there we go. Okay, it says installation succeeded on server 1 and everything should be good to go. So at that point, I'm going to click on close. Now notice up here at the top we have a little flag, a little notification, and it's saying post-deployment configuration for Active Directory for DHCP server. So we want to, at this point, maybe take a screen capture so we did, or I'm sorry, not a screen capture, a snapshot so we don't mess anything up. So post Active Directory domain service install, and we'll take a snapshot, right, in case we screw something up. So we're going to say promote this server to a domain controller. And now it's going to come through and it's going to ask us some things. I think what the book calls it, because I don't have my book here, is net plus lab.net. I think is what they said to call that. And then we are going to add a new forest. Okay. Net plus lab.net. Click on next. And don't worry, you'll understand what a forest and a tree is soon enough. Okay, so here it's going to say what functional level of the new forest and the root domain. So here's the deal, a little bit of a discussion, and hopefully we'll have this again tomorrow. If you're looking to incorporate this into a brand new environment where nothing is legacy, you're going to stick with whatever the highest is. In this case, Windows Server 2012 R2. However, if it's going to integrate in with some older stuff, you might want to step it back a little bit. All right. Specify, so we want a password here. This is a password that you're setting up for the domain controller. Next thing you're going to say is you can say delegation for the DNS server cannot be created because the authoritative parent zone cannot be found. You're just going to click on next because we're going to make up our own DNS server here in a minute. This should automatically fill in here in just a minute. Yep. All right, we can leave all of these alone, but do take the time to read what it says. And then it's going to ask what are the different things that we're going to install and set up. We click on next. Just be patient. Don't think anything is broken. Just kind of be patient. All right, so now it's going to throw out some different warnings. Domain controllers have a default for the security settings, so on and so forth. These are things that if we weren't in a development environment or a testing environment that we would want to pay attention to and make sure that we go back and correct. Okay. As long as we're okay, we're going to click on install. It's going to take just a minute. Do what it needs to do. Says this computer has at least one physical network adapter that does not have a static IP address assigned to the properties of both DHCP and 406, blah, 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 blah. That's an important one to note because eventually what's going to happen is we're going to use our server as a router. And one of them is going to attach to the Frostburg network or our own network if you're doing it at home. And the other one, and we'll have to kind of use a static IP address and we'll have to figure out how to get that. And then the other one is going to be a static IP address for the 192.168.54.1 information. And then that's going to be able to turn this thing into a router. All right, so now it's going to say you're about to be signed out. Computer's being started. Yep, no problem. I don't have a problem with that. Go ahead and reboot. I might reboot before I get to. There it goes. So as soon as this comes back, I want to do two different things here. This particular machine, in this particular machine, you know, there are two different things that are going on here. This one doesn't have anything. It's got no IP address, and then this particular one over here, it does have an IP address. So theoretically, once this is up over here, once my server one is up, once I get back to that, I should be able to attach the domain. But then the other one wants you to have a DHCP server installed, and we don't have that configured yet. So kind of a lot of different moving pieces here, but these are the foundation for all of our networks. Once we get our Active Directory services installed with our domains, we can start setting up all kinds of accounts for people, so on and so forth. And that's one of the things we'll do here as soon as we can get logged in here. All right, so at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a new account on. I want to look around here. I can't remember exactly where this is, but somewhere I have the ability to take care of my users. Active Directory Administrative Center. I think that's it. Okay. So there's my Net Plus plus Net Plus. And there's my users, and let me get into my users there. Users. Users new, and I just want to do a single user, and I want to call this person WS1. I'm just going to call it me. I'll just remember it better that way. And then what is the user's login going to be? And I want to make that mflin, right? And then I want to put in a password for him as well. And then kind of have a look here. It says different things you can do. You can force them to do different stuff, like they must change it in the past. The next login, I'm not going to force that, or maybe I will. Maybe I will force that. So then I'm going to click on OK. All right, now, if everything is working well, first I'm going to come over here, and before I do anything, I want to ping that server. I want to make sure that I can communicate with that server. All right. Okay, I can communicate with it. So now what I want to do is I want to come in and I want to be able to connect over to that. So let me see here. All right, you ready? So I'm going to go to the orb. Then I'm going to right click and I'm going to say properties. Then I'm going to go to advanced system settings. And I'm going to go to computer name, and down here it says rename this computer or join its domain. So I'm going to click on change, and I want to say domain. You ready? I want to say net plus lab.net. Click on OK. It should come back really quick. So my username was mflin, and I had my password that I had over there. If it fails, we can always use the administrator one. But it should come up and say welcome. It says it must be changed before logging in on the first time. Okay. Let me see, what do I want to do? What if I came back over here and I said find mflin. I want to say reset password. I want to uncheck that like that. Okay, so we'll try it again over here now. Okay. And if this doesn't work, we can always use the administrator account. Yep, there we go. So now watch what happens when I reboot with this guy. Like this. It's going to come up now, and it's going to ask me to, it's going to ask me for my credentials. It's going to look very similar to Frostburg's now. Enter Control-Delete, and we can say switch user, and we can say other user, right? And notice log on to NetPlus Lab. If I say switch user, I can always log on to that local account. All right, other user. If I put anything else in, even my old information, I can't log in because I'm trying to log into the domain. So if I put in Flynn and then put in my information, now I'm bound to the domain policies as well when I log in this way. So make sure you keep that in mind. All right. Okay. Next thing to do, I'm going to, oh heck. So one of the other things I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here, and I got another notification, and it's complete the DHCP configuration. And this is going to be pretty straightforward. I'm going to use my regular administrator stuff, and then I'm going to hit close. So now that is that's ready to go, and we're going to right click on our server here, and we're going to say DHCP manager. And in my DHCP manager, I want to come under the IPv4. Oops. And let me see. I want to say new scope. All right. And then for this new scope, I want to say demo scope. And if I recall in the book, they said put it a little bit higher. So I'll put like 192.168.200 is what I'm going to do. And then say 192.168.225. All right, now notice configuration settings propagate the DHCP client length /24. That's the subnet mask, right? Say next. Type the IP address range you want to exclude. So this is where I might apply different servers and stuff. So I might say like 192.168.54.1 is already excluded, but we can say 2 through 192.168.54. I don't know, what are we going to do? 199, right? Oh, it's within that range. So I could say I don't want anything between 200 and 205. Not allowed to use those in that range. Okay. Say next, and then it's going to ask how long do you want the leases. Again, you need to be reading all this. I've read all this. I understand this stuff. You don't. So how long do I want it to last for? 8 days, 1 day, an hour? How long do you want? If you're in a coffee shop, I would recommend like an hour or two, right? And that way you're constantly releasing things. This knowledge is transferable to all devices, right? Lease times, DHCP, DNS, all of this stuff. It's transferable, all right? I want to configure these options now. Yes. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. When clients obtain an address, they're going to DHCP options such as an IP address of the routers, gateways, so on and so wins. Do you want to configure these options now? Yes. So an IP address for the router, that's going to be 192.168.54.1, right? Then we'll click next. And that's if we have like multiple routes, we could put that in. Next is saying you specify the parent domain. Well, the parent domain is NetPlusLab. All right. And then it says what's the DNS server. We can put that in 192.168.54.1. We'll have it resolve. That's where that thing should be. And we will move that up. So these are in order. If this one fails, it fails over to this one. Well, this is a private, there isn't an IP address. So really we should remove that to be technical. We'll click on next. Now it says, what about a Win server? We don't have any Win server, so we won't worry about that. And now do you want to activate it? Yeah, I want to activate that guy. So give it a second and you should see that scope come up. Notice that the check mark is there. That means that everything is fine. Now if we come over here to our workstation, we bring up a command and I type in ipconfig /renew. If everything goes well, it'll pick up an IP address. Yep, it's recognizing it. Sometimes it hangs for a second because it's trying to like reach out. So you can always kill that off. Honestly, it should have an IP address. Let me see, there it is, 192.168.54.206. And down here, default gateway 192.168.54.1 as well. All right. These other ones, these are other like tunnels and stuff that are in there. So don't sweat those too much. We can always remove them if we need to remove them, but I wouldn't worry about them too much. We could automatically connect this one if we wanted, but we're not going to. All right. Okay, if you have any questions, let me know. I just kind of thought I would record this for you. Shane had asked me some questions and other people would ask questions. This should cover just about everything out of Chapter 1. I'm going to cover it in Wednesday's class a little bit, but there you have it if you need a little bit of help. A lot of kind of building base, very important data has happened over these past couple of videos that I've recorded. So my recommendation is to watch them a couple times. Do this stuff several times. Use this stuff so you can go back in your snapshot. So I can say revert to it. Yeah, I want to revert back to that one. And I can do the same thing over here. I can right click on workstation 2 and I can say revert back to before the domain hookup. And I'm immediately going to come back to, there I am, 192.168.54. And over here, this is going to restore back to where it was before, and I can practice adding that domain in again. All right. And I can do the same thing with my server. I can easily trash all my work, which as a matter of fact, I'll go ahead and do that. Snapshot, refer back, and away it goes. And now all of my hard work is trashed. But it's important that you do it several times so you get the hang of it, because again, this is foundational knowledge, foundational information. Okay, so this is post deployment. I can actually revert back further than that if I want. I can go to snapshot manager and I can go all the way back to before DNS setup. All right, there you go. There you have it. If you have any questions, let me know.